Hey everybody, how you guys doing? We are Bryce from Victims to Victors, where we tell our stories, how we went from the trials, tribulations, and storms, and how we overcame, so you can know that you're not alone and you can too become a victor. Today's guest is a brother from another mother, but the same father. Man, we have to understand that being in the body of Christ, we all have different jobs and we all have different duties, and when we carry those out, God is glorified in the utmost. And so I want you to understand that the things that we could do here in the Western world, I'm in Canada, a brother here is from the States, and we could do amazing work in our own personal land. We could do it, you know what I mean, helping our brothers out left and right. But when you're willing to put your time and your energy to go overseas to places that sometimes you can't even pronounce the name, but
Right.
yet to go there and put your time, your life, and your abilities to work and to serve, it's a whole different thing, man. Today's guest, we have Jeff. How do you pronounce the last name, brother? Crothers.
Crothers. So that's actually
Crothers.
just like brothers, but with a C.
Oh, there you go. There you go, brother Crothers. Sorry about that, man.
It's all right. Yeah,
But
that's
man, how
good.
you doing today?
It's good. It's a good day. Yeah, it's been
Ain't
a
that
great
the
day.
truth?
Yeah, for sure.
I,
It's funny. I always tell people if I had any brothers, we would have had the best company ever. It would have been the Crothers brothers, something, something, something. Right? I
most
mean, it just would have
definitely.
been. But the Lord said no. I only have two sisters, so it
Okay.
just doesn't. It just doesn't work.
There you go. Are you the older, middle, younger?
I'm the youngest.
Oh, oh
Yeah,
wow.
I'm the baby. So
Daggone it, man. That must have been fun.
yeah, I was tortured by two women as growing up. I,
Best
I
time
couldn't
ever.
do I couldn't do anything right. It was always
Facts,
wrong.
facts, man. Holy. So really, where are you from, man? Where you born and raised at?
So born and raised in California, so Southern
Okay.
California, Carlsbad, Vista area,
Yeah.
which is basically right in between San Diego and LA,
Mm.
and
Okay.
spent, gosh, I mean 25, I think 25 years, 26, 27 years in that area,
Yeah.
and then moved up just a little bit north to a place called Temecula. And
Temecula. Wow.
Temecula went, yeah, so it's a mini wine country area,
Mm.
and so it's just off the path. It's a little inland from the ocean, so it could get really hot.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
and
not bad.
so
That's not bad. So
so
in high school, if we were like grade say 10, 11, we sit beside
yeah,
each other. Were you the ladies' man? Were you the guy in the books? Were you a jock? Like where were you at?
I I was the drama geek. I there you know
Really?
out of my high school of, I don't know, 400 or 500 students. Um, there was two guys with long hair. I was I was one of them,
Oh
and the other guy in the drama class, he was the other one. So uh, I was definitely not. I was, yeah,
man.
I was not in the in crowd or the sports crowd.
Yeah.
Um,
So was it
uh,
Shakespeare or was it just like any other like was did you guys do like playing Shakespeare at all?
yeah, so we did. I mean, we did Shakespearean stuff, and then we did our own pieces, or we mixed stuff in, or um, all kinds of different stuff. So
Yeah.
basically, I mean, early on in my schooling, I was homeschooled, first
Okay.
grade through sixth grade,
Okay.
and then I made the great choice to go into public junior high. Yeah, just
In
jump
junior
right in
high. Oh
there.
man,
Yeah, junior high.
that's like where the girls start to be good.
Yeah. um, and so I tried a foreign language in my homeschooling, and it was
Oh.
terrible. Tried learning Spanish, couldn't do it. So when I got to high school, they were like, "You have to do arts,
Mm.
or a performing art, or a foreign language." Well, I already knew I couldn't do Spanish.
Performing
I
arts, yeah.
draw really bad stick figures, and
Oh
so
wow.
I was kind of left with going into performing arts, and it was actually a good move. It was probably my, if you looked on my report card, it was the class that I had the least amount of absences in.
Well, there you go. There you go. Jeez. I was actually just talking to my brother here, man. I believe that philosophy And art, any type of art, should be a mandatory.
Mm,
And because I think philosophy is like art for your brain, and then
yeah.
art is just like the way you can express yourself in whatever form or fashion, right?
Right.
And
Yeah,
so
for
like
sure.
I think those are two solid places, you know. Yeah, I was more of like a wrestler guy, you know, so I don't know.
Okay.
Probably no
Yeah.
arts there.
Right. Yeah.
You know, maybe the contortions a bit, you know, but
Yeah. It was high school was interesting. I played. I did play sports up until up until high school. So I played baseball until
baseball.
high school, but then got out of it during high school, and
Mm,
you know, was really focusing more on martial arts at the time.
nice, nice. So you got into it like what form did you get into? Because obviously martial arts is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's nicknamed Cajun karate.
Cajun, you know, it's some
Cajun
interesting
karate.
stuff when it has Cajun in front of it, man.
Yeah. So that was the system that I started with, which it's like a mix of karate, judo, and jiu-jitsu, all kind of smashed into one.
Nice, nice. So
And
a lot of smash grabs. Like, what was it typically like? More like striking, more grappling, or a lot of combinations?
but more it was more striking, but we definitely did stuff on the ground, had the
Okay.
jiu-jitsu side of it for, someone tackled you, what do you do? If someone mounts you, what do you do?
Mm.
So I mean, are you familiar at all with Krav Maga?
Yeah, more. Yeah, I did. I've done like sambo for like 6, 7 years. Like,
Okay.
it's around the
So
same.
so our system is very similar in philosophy to Krav Maga.
Okay.
So palm strikes, hammer strikes, elbows,
All the good
knees. I
stuff.
mean, whatever you got to do to get away, right?
Most definitely.
It's our system wasn't training someone to fight someone else of equal size and equal skill. It was no, you're 100 pounds and the guy that's attacking you is 250.
Mm. What do you do?
What moves? Well, yeah, what moves are you going to do against a guy like that? So the realm of strikes and
Mm.
kicks all get a whole lot smaller when
Oh,
you're in
so
an
you're not
extreme
doing like
situation.
tornado kicks or anything, right? Like none of that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Man, I did karate. I think it was Kyokushin when I was younger.
Okay.
And this one guy grabbed me. It was perfect. Like there was like the sleeve grab, and you chop down and you lunge
Yeah.
punch, whatever you call it, to the stomach.
Yeah.
That's what I learned on Monday. This guy did this to me on Wednesday, so I was like, this is perfect. Bam, bam, and teacher saw, got a little bit of trouble,
Oh yeah.
but I was like, my mom was like, why did you do that? I'm like, you took me to karate.
Yeah. What
This is
did you
what I'm supposed
expect
to
me
do.
to do? All right.
Man,
Did
man.
that did
So
that guy ever bother you again?
never.
Yeah. Right. See, there you go.
See, like I'm good with like being Christian. I had a problem though because I wasn't able to answer the question. Aren't you supposed to turn the other cheek? I'm like, well, he hits me here, then I'm gonna be like this, and my hook is gonna come back. So
Yeah.
effectively, I'm gonna turn.
Right.
But like, I never was able to answer that. So would you be able to like give your idea? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
For sure. So in the way we understand that is turning the other cheek is a sign of suffering for it's like a suffering for the gospel type idea.
Mm, mm,
So
mm,
it's when you're suffering for the gospel, you turn the other cheek, right? So if for say I'm in Iraq, right? And we're out doing something and some people come up and are, I don't know, yelling at us or throwing rocks at us for the work that we're doing,
mm-hmm.
right? That would kind of be like, okay, we're gonna suffer that and we're gonna get out of the area, right?
Yeah.
And kind of we're not gonna retaliate against these people, right? They're basically persecuting us for us being Christians or whatnot. Now, later that night, when we're sleeping, if a group of people start to break down our door and come in and try to kill us all,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to fight back.
Most definitely.
Yeah, yeah.
Most
So
definitely.
we make a definitive line between suffering for the gospel and evil trying to do something to us.
100% agree. I,
Yeah. So
I was listening to this one minister. He's from Louisiana, and one of a good old boy. And he
yeah.
was driving home after church with his wife, and somebody at the gate was like drunk and doing something, And he's like, hey, I'm trying to go home. Can you? He's like, yeah. He's cussing him off and telling him all this stuff. He's like, all right, I still got to go home. Can you stop blocking my gate? You don't live here. So he opened the door. He's like, I live here. Can you move? And he's like, no, you can't do this, blah, blah, blah. So he kindly grabbed his 45 and he said, listen, I will not be, hassled today. Go away. But you're a pastor. He's like, you're not coming at me because I'm a pastor. And so,
Right. Yeah.
the thought is the same thing. It's like, if somebody's trying to do bad to you, right,
Mhm.
you can't just sit there and just like get your head punched in, You did
Yeah.
say use a little bit of wisdom too,
Yeah, he did.
and
It's actually one of the few times where he tells us to act like the snake or the serpent, right? Be wise as the serpent. It's like, I mean, that's a big statement at that time,
yeah,
telling the body of Christ to be like the serpent.
so true, so true. And it's
Uh,
like, and for me, at the beginning, I didn't always make the right choices, so as I didn't know how to like really like do that. And then I've heard different ministers basically break it down the same way you did, and saying, hey,
yeah,
you know what? Yeah, if people are harming you, defend yourself. But if it's because you're a Christian and they're doing this and saying all this stuff, leave them alone, whatever.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. So
so
there's, yeah,
a- after you get out of high school and you say, hey,
yeah,
I'm moving up north.
yeah.
Did you get into like ministry work then, or like when did the ministry work really kick off for you?
Yeah, so I started to get involved with the ministry when I moved up to Temecula area, just because. So my instructor, Victor Marx, had started his ministry, All
Mm,
Things Possible Ministries, and he had moved back to California and
mhm,
moved into Murrieta, which is right next to Temecula, and he basically had an office there, and he had his ATP ministry headquarters, and he also wanted to facilitate having a training center,
nice.
and so he wanted to be doing running classes and martial art and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I mean he was traveling and speaking 150 times a year, so like he couldn't be the guy to be teaching the classes.
Yeah, that'd be
So
a little hard.
yeah, so he started calling me. It was like, Jeff, I need you to come up and manage this place, and I was still down at mine, like managing mine.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I don't really know how that's gonna work. But I mean, it ended up working out to where our school kind of, molded and came up to where he was.
Nice.
So I went up there. I did like a couple semesters at a Bible college while I was, um, and then I basically was running the martial arts school. So I was involved with ATP Ministries,
Nice.
but in on the training aspect side,
That's
and did that for 5 or 6 years
mm,
until I moved out to Colorado to work for the ministry full time.
jeez, Colorado. That's like
Yeah.
so it's like California sun, Colorado snow.
Yes. Snow, right? Yeah. Today was beautiful. It was sunny and 40 degrees outside. It was great.
I'm I'm like freezing. I got like a sweater on, another sweater underneath, a jacket. It's pretty cold. It's pretty cold.
Yeah. The earlier this week it was snowing and a high of 16 degrees.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you miss the beach at all?
No, I
No,
wasn't a huge beach guy, so
no.
I was like a terrible San Diego guy. It's like every time I traveled places, I tell people, "Oh yeah, I'm from San Diego." They're like, "Oh, do you surf?" And I was like,
No,
"No,
none
I
of that. None of that stuff.
don't, I don't surf." It's
So
just never. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I don't really miss the beach.
facts, man. Were you
Yeah.
always like in the church? Like your family was always in the church, always in ministry and stuff, or not so much?
So, so yeah, no, So,
Maybe.
I mean, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I really like have a really bad memory of my childhood. Like I can't, not a bad memory. I can't remember like when I was 8, 9, 10. Like, I just I can't remember. But my parents told us that, when I was younger, we did attend a church. Then we moved to a different house, and I think we stopped attending. And then I ended up getting saved
Mm,
in my instructor at the time was Mr. Marx's dad. So we call him Soka. So the guy that started the system.
Okay.
So I was training with him, and he was taking me as a little student over to a class he was doing at a church. And so we drive over to the church and do a class there every Tuesday night.
Mm.
And I mean, I was like an orange belt, which is like the
Like
white,
basically.
yellow, orange.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm like 9 years old, 8 or 9,
Mhm.
and he had this little yellow Volkswagen Bug, and he'd always have a tape player with tracks playing. And I asked him one day, I'm like, hey, so how do I know that I'm saved? My parents had told me that I said the prayer when I was 4, but I couldn't
So
remember it. And I'm like, it's kind of a big deal. I should remember doing this. And so we pulled over. He led me in a prayer. I got saved. Um, and so it wasn't until about junior high that we started going back to church. I ended up hanging out with one of my karate buddies, and I ended up going to his church on Sunday with him and his family.
nice.
And went back to my parents and said, we got to start going to this church. And so we started going to that church, and my parents still go. And
Nice.
yeah, it's a really good church.
That's
Got
amazing.
involved, and then I had my away days, or away years, if you want to call it. I had about a decade where I kind of ran from the things of the Lord, and
Yeah.
tried my hand at the things of the world.
Didn't work out that well.
No, it didn't work. It didn't work out that well. It ended in a lot of pain, a lot of pain, suffering, and shame.
It
So
it, it tends to happen like that, you know.
yeah,
Tends to happen.
yeah.
So
So
when you got into the ministry, you started, instructing on the martial arts side, and
mhm,
then when did you start to do like the full time, like ministry work?
yeah. So 4 years ago.
Oh wow.
So yeah. So we moved out to Colorado, and basically I started as, I don't know what my job title was. I was the travel assistant, or I was the assistant to Mr. Marx, right? So when he would when he people would have him come speak at their church, I would go with them. I'd drive, get us to the hotel. I'd coordinate with on-site security to make sure we had security, and so it basically was kind of like I mean, his executive protection agent.
Nice.
So I
You
was
might
his
know a
travel
thing or two with
assistant.
them.
Yeah, I was his travel assistant who knew martial arts really good, and so that's what I was there for. I was his eyes and ears while he was doing ministry stuff. He has to be 100%
For sure.
in the ministry, right? And he after he'd speak, he'd go over to our little resource table and talk with people, shake hands, take
Yeah.
pictures. Those people come up, and I don't know if you know his story, but his testimony, he has
Yeah, he's got
a ton
heavy
of,
stories.
yeah, heavy stories. So people come up and they'll lay their heavy stories on him, and
Just like, hey,
yeah, I know, and so it's he's really got to be 100% focused on those people,
for sure.
and that makes him vulnerable when you've got a lot of other people moving around. It's just not.
True. You there? I hear you. Things not moving.
Oh no!
Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go.
All right,
Yes, sir. All right.
shoot,
Good.
I don't know what happened.
Life.
Tech, technology, right? Sometimes it's
Ain't
working
that the
for you,
truth?
sometimes it's working
It,
against you.
Technology is amazing when it works.
Yes. Huh.
Is it?
Uh,
Yeah, just, we want to get back into like when people just lay their stories onto him, and you were there to mind the crowd.
Yeah, so he's 100% focused on them and ministering to them, and because he knows I'm 100% focused on basically watching his back and making sure that there's no one who's there for nefarious reasons.
Facts, facts. Did you ever have like a situation where you're like, you know what, this person is trying to do something, you just like start laying hands and binding them, just like you in the neck.
Yeah. Yeah. No, not I'm more, just people managing. Sometimes people get up there and they have they want to talk to him for like 45 minutes, and it's like, bro,
Probably
there's
not.
50 people behind you. Like, you need to go.
Yeah,
And so
facts.
most of my job is like I break the conversation and I give Mr. Marks a chance to
Relax.
we've got our little deals that we do, our little code words and things, and then he's like, he looks at me,
Yeah.
either he says something like, I'm talking to people, leave me alone, or something
It's
funny
like
to break
that's a
it up.
time. All
Yeah.
right.
And but and then that person goes away.
Yeah.
So
Fair
yeah,
enough.
there
Fair
was
enough. So
yeah.
how was it? You said you like to, or you guys gone overseas to Iraq and whatnot. How was like your first trip, like the first time out of America into that type of situation? How was that? It must have been pretty interesting.
Yeah, it was super. It was my first time going out of the country ever. I went to Cancun as a kid in Mexico, but
Slightly different.
it's slightly different. Um, Still a lot of sand, just not,
True.
but not the beaches.
No bikinis. No.
Yeah, no bikinis, no. So, yeah, my first trip, gosh, we flew to Amman, Jordan.
Oh
We
wow.
met with one of a leader who was uh, he was the head of the Sunni endowment. So he was like the money guy for the church in Iraq. So he had 300 million Muslims that were under him, and he agreed to meet with Mr. Marx. And so we went to Amman, Jordan. We met with him. We were there for a couple days. Then we flew into Iraq. We went to the front lines where the Peshmerga were holding the line in Kurdistan, between Kurdistan and Iraq, right
Wow.
where Mosul was.
Hmm.
So Mosul. So we got there, and the night before we got there, ISIS fighters had come in and done a couple bombings on that location, and so we were there. We met up with our buddy Dave Eubank
Okay.
and the Free Burma Rangers.
I was about
So
to say that. Yeah.
so they're out there. Dave's awesome. If you haven't read his stuff, he's an incredible guy.
Nice. Nice.
Um, so yeah, gosh, and then what else did we do? We found a ministry that had a food truck that wanted to get some supplies into a certain spot on the Iraqi side, but they
Mhm.
wouldn't drive the vehicle in there because it was too dangerous.
Okay.
And so we were like, hey, we'll drive it in. And
Be me.
yeah, hey, we'll do that. That's dangerous. That's right up our alley. And so we went rolling in on the Iraqi side. We met up with one of the armored Iraqi units under General Mustafa, and brought him a bunch of supplies, brought him food, water, baby formula. So they were at a collection point just on the outskirts of Mosul,
Mhm.
where the residents inside the city were trying to get away from ISIS, and ISIS was mortaring them as they were trying to flee. These guys were at a point where they were basically vetting who the people were fleeing, right? Making
Mhm.
sure they weren't suicide bombers trying to get in and get close and blow people up.
That's wild.
Um, yeah, so we kind of brought them a bunch of supplies, and then we created a great relationship with that general that we still have today.
Nice.
And he's actually the one of the guys that's helped us do some of the he's helped facilitated the recoveries of some children that we've done.
That's
So like
amazing.
he literally would call us up and be like, hey, I've found this baby. you want to come get him?
You want 'em?
Yeah. And we were like, okay. And so we drive in, pick up the baby. They're usually injured and malnourished. So we'd get them back into our safe house and, get them medical attention, get them, healthy, and then find their family and any remaining family and place them with them.
Find their family.
So we'd find like extended family. So usually the case was like, the baby was now orphaned because mom and dad just got blown up or something. And so we'd, with some of our intel guys, we'd try to find remaining family members. And
So
then
you guys didn't post it on like the 6 o'clock news or nothing? Nothing like that?
Yeah, no, yeah, it didn't work. Yeah,
Found this baby.
wasn't the best thing to put up there. So yeah, and the Lord was amazing and helped us reunite each of the kids that we've helped recover. We've been able to reunite back with families.
Wow. So from your time there to now, how many children have you been able to save and then bring them back to their families? Like, is there like would it be?
So for us, the physical rescue portion is it's not our main thing that we're doing. So like over there, we're going into the refugee camps daily and bringing food, water, and then these little stuffed animals that are trauma tools that help with trauma. So I mean, we've put out about 45,000 lion and lamb trauma toys into the refugee camp. So, and so we're helping the kids out even in that way. It was very rare for us to do a recovery, type thing, right? It's more, it's more about those, those who have suffered the trauma. They're already in the refugee camps, and so we go there and help them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever like have to like deal with stuff at the refugee camp, like you guys? Because I'm sure that the ISIS probably doesn't like you guys. Probably,
Right.
probably knows that you guys are there, or that you're in the area, and say, "Hey, let's go after them." Does that happen, or you pretty much got protection over that, or?
So no, we don't have protection over that. We're kind of our own protection unit, and so um, we do as much misleading on where and when we're going to be somewhere as we can. So even on like even on social media, we'll we'll start in social media because ISIS is watching on social media, and so we'll when when we're going to do a trip, we'll be like, oh yeah, we're going to go at this time, be praying for us and support us, and like we
We're
put it
there
like I don't
already.
know, a month. Yeah, we're there already. Yeah, like hey, in a month we're going to be here, be praying for
Yeah,
us, and we literally just got there. So it gives
good
it's
stuff.
kind of throwing. Yeah, so but on one of the trips, the Marxes got on like 15 different news and radio stations because of the cool stuff that we were doing and how we were helping.
Mm.
And it was shortly after that, Mr. Marx got a call from an FBI buddy saying, "Hey, we just heard some chatter that ISIS is targeting you." And so they went into hiding for like 3 days. They were 3 days out from going back home anyways. So they
Oh
went
wow.
and they separated themselves from the team. They went and hid at a separate location, and then got out of town.
Wow.
Um,
That's wild, man.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
wild.
So
Yeah, I
so yeah,
find that in America, in Canada, prayer life is pretty important. Pretty important. You know what I mean? To deal with your spouse, to deal with work, to deal with, the coronavirus. It's you gotta
right.
pray. But I would assume prayer life pretty much kicks up a notch when people are shooting at you. Just my idea.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Have you ever heard someone talk about how they wake up in the middle of the night and they don't know why, but then they end up starting to pray or whatnot?
That was me
Like
last night. That
literally
was that was me
last
last
night.
night.
So like if you wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning it's it's like 10 o'clock in Iraqi time.
Oh
So
shit.
you could be waking up in the middle of the night going, I don't know why I'm praying. And we could be inside
Over
a dangerous area, right? Or inside a
there.
refugee camp
Wow.
at
Yeah.
that time. It's just, that dawned on me like a couple years ago of going, oh wow, that's really interesting.
I probably should be praying right now. Like
Yeah.
it's happened to me. Like I'll just wake up and I'm like, why am I awake? And then I know I'm supposed to be praying, but I'm tired. Like
Right.
just to be real, I'm tired. And so I'm like, man, I gotta wake up in 3 hours. If I go to sleep, it's really not a time. And I'll be just talking. And God be like,
Yeah.
hey, pray, pray. you know? And it's just like, oh, all right. I guess I gotta pray. you know.
Yeah.
But then, I'm like, hey, what am I praying for? My mom and my brother, the basic stuff. But then the more I started watching you guys, I'm just like, I think I got a good idea what to pray for. It's a good idea
Right.
here. It's just, like I said in the message, like, hey, you know what? I feel my job is to let people get their stories out there because everybody's got a story. Everybody's been through something. But
Hmm.
then, other job as a Christian is to pray for other Christians. Like simple as that, especially for you guys that are going out there and risking your lives and actually helping people out and doing literally the Lord's work in the darkest places. And sometimes, what would you
Yeah.
say you would be like, hey, you know what, for people that are not Christian, people that are, what would you say, like, hey, you know what, getting shot is pretty bad, but this is what I was thinking, this is what I was praying for, when I was home, you know what I mean? Like, what would be like that one thing you'd be like, hey, you know, how to better your life, how to take the step in the right direction. Because life is short, man. And the bullets
Yeah.
flying, it shortens it a little bit.
That's for sure. Time is something that we never get back. It's one of our most valuable commodities that we have, and it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter every day, right?
True.
So I mean, just using your time to the best of your ability, I think is one of the best things. Is praying that that you would see the things that are not just good for you to do, but great. I
Mm.
mean, I think the enemy, if I think the enemy is happy if we're just doing a whole lot of little good things. As
So
long as we
true.
don't step into the doing great things realm, then he's like, oh, okay, now we got to do something about this, right? And
Yep.
yeah, I mean, like living a mediocre life, you're not a dangerous person,
So true. Truth.
right? You're like
Truth.
I mean, you're like sitting on the bench, you're on the sidelines. That's like
Yeah.
mediocre, right? It's really jumping out there and getting into it.
So,
And it's probably one of the best things people can do.
facts. And like even in these times now, you know what I mean? Like we got all this government talking, we got the media talking, we got the celebrities talking, we got, our friends and neighbors talking, then we got the virus going around that it's gonna kill
Right.
everybody, you know. And it's just like if we sit on the sidelines, pretty much like you said, like that's what the enemy wants. Like that's literally what he wants you to just sit there, depend on the
Yeah.
government, depend on there, and your focus is not on him. And that's where we get led anywhere he wants us to go, literally.
Right. Well, yeah, it's when we stop moving forward, we tend to get in trouble.
That's the
It's
truth.
like, like a parked car is easier to shoot at. I mean,
It, I'm not the best
it's
shot in the world, but I promise you, I might hit that parked one. That parked one, I might get.
yeah. So you gotta be
Jeez,
moving, you know.
most definitely, most definitely. And then, like, one thing is like when you were over there, right? When you're in the depths of it, did you ever
Yeah.
wish to like come home? It was like I want to come home, or it was like this is where I'm meant to be. I like this is where like I could do a lot of good work here.
No, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. I mean, it was so, I mean, my heart hurts because last year was the first year in 6 years that we haven't gone to Iraq
Wow.
because of because of all the lockdowns. We weren't
Yeah.
able to get in country, but I mean, my boss has been 14 times in 6 years. We were doing about 2 trips a year over there. So I've been 4 times to Iraq and Syria. And it's a bummer not to be able to go there right now. The people are amazing. And so and the suffering over there is real. I mean, it's not faked. I mean, there's real pain. There's
Real thing.
there was real war there, and there's a ton of trauma. And so uh, it was, I mean, every day was just hard,
I'm sure.
but so great.
Yeah.
And I always, I'm always wanting to go back and help out more,
And
because it's so easy over there.
what you mean?
Yeah, it's so easy to
Hey,
help.
we were targeted,
Yeah.
people shooting at us,
well,
like kids are suffering.
well,
It was easy. I don't
I
know.
mean, yeah. I mean, it's easy to find the people that are hurting and need ministering to, because it's like
Facts.
they're in a refugee camp. It's like, where they are. I mean,
Facts.
they're either running from ISIS,
Yeah.
literally, or they've already been placed in a refugee camp. I mean, there's like 4.2 million people were displaced into refugee camps. I mean, and that's like an
What?
old number. That's an old number. Four plus million people were displaced. And man, I mean, these are people who were. Here's one of the things that people don't realize is, a lot of people think, oh wow, those poor Iraqis, they had to go from their mud hut homes and they got kicked out and they had to go live in a refugee camp,
Yeah,
right? And now, yes, there are mud hut homes there,
for
but
sure.
the people that were living inside of Mosul, that was a major hub. I mean, they've got
It was like a
some
city. Yeah.
awesome. It's city. I mean, you had guys that were car dealer ownerships. They own their own hotel. I mean, you had people of wealth who then go have to run, lose family members, and then live in a tent. So
Wow.
you know, I mean, it's a big deal for them. Uh,
And
so
and that's something we don't see. You know what I mean? We just don't see it. We just see, like you said,
yeah,
the mud huts, the people that work with in the fields with donkeys and stuff. We don't actually see the real stuff, and it's amazing that you actually one got to see it firsthand, but also not just see it, but help. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
think we're in a situation where it's like, I'll give you my prayer hands. Like they always put up the prayer hands. It's just like, are you actually praying, or are you just putting this little emoji in there? Like,
right,
are you
yeah,
actually helping somebody out when they're in need, or are you not? Right? And I think it's amazing that, like, even that you even said yes, I'll go. You know what I mean? And I love
yeah,
that scripture where it says that I heard the Lord's calling, and who shall go? Who's gonna go for us, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
who's actually gonna go, right? Because like we can send anybody, but who's actually gonna go? Like,
yeah,
hey, you go. No, I ain't going. You go. Who are like, hey, I'm the
yeah,
guy. And that's
yeah,
that's an amazing thing. Clearly,
yeah,
your parents did right. God's obviously leading you in the right direction, which is amazing, man. And
yeah,
man, just before we get out of here, man, and I know you said that get up and actually start doing something, start moving in the direction where you're called. But
yeah,
what if somebody's like right now in the pits? They may not be getting shot at, but they're just in the slums. Like, they don't know what's up, they don't know what's down. But what would you say to get that going, to start moving?
yeah. So, I mean, I definitely know that feeling. I've been in the pits, um, s- uh, you know, uh, and not in the Iraq sense, but in the spiritual sense of just no spirituality going on, just trying to make it through the day, not feeling terrible and going back to my old ways.
Mm.
one thing I really started trying to do was find one or two people who I can try to be encouraging throughout the day to. So I'm feeling depressed. I would get like as many people as I know. I'd find something that was encouraging, but it wasn't encouraging me. But I'd find something that's encouraging and I'd send it to other people. And man, I would get messages back like, hey, thanks so much. I was having a really bad day. You sent that scripture to me, and man, that just made my day feel better. And instantly
You feel
that makes, yeah, boom, like, oh, that breathes life into me, just by doing that. And so that's something that I started to do. And then a lot of times we get down on ourselves because of our failings, and the way that we failed being a good Christian, or following God, and about the times when we didn't follow God. I think it's a mistake to dwell on that in that way. That now has given you a firsthand knowledge to speak and minister to someone who is going through the same thing that you were.
Facts.
Right? You can now say, hey, I used to do those drugs, now I don't, and here's my experience, and here's how I made it through it, and here's how I got clean, and this is what I did.
So true. So true. That's
So
amazing.
for people being able to find their own voice inside of their pain is a good thing.
That is so true. Like it's like that pay it forward type of thing, right? Like, hey, just help other people out, and something's gonna come back. It's like a universe, way of being. Like, just give it out. Like give the love that you want. Give the appreciation that you want. It's gonna come back, man. It's gonna come back.
Totally.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Brother, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much for this time. There's one last thing to ask you. Is to state your name and then say, I am a victor.
Yeah. My name's Jeff Crothers, and I am a victor.
Damn, boy. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.